you mentioned something about willpower and dieting. What's your take on the genetic role or the role that genetics plays in terms of kind of successful body weight or body weight management? In that, like, I've heard some people talk about how some people might just have, it's like they attribute it to willpower, that some people are just able to make different decisions than others, whereas other people have talked about how maybe the inclination some people have to fight, for example, to avoid like taking that extra bowl of ice cream or whatever, might be of different magnitude than somebody else. And that genetics may be playing a role there in terms of like the psychology or the neural aspect of it all, or just genetics in general. What are your thoughts of kind of what role that plays in terms of where people's body weight kind of pans out?
Yeah, I think it's fundamental. I think it's a massive aspect. It's probably the majority of uh, of our health and how we respond to things and whatnot. But that doesn't mean that we can't change them. Think of genetics as like a hardwiring, but your epigenetics, so the tags and whatnot of which genes. I guess I'll walk it through for anybody that's listening. You have genes, right? And I explained this before, GLP-1, you have genes that encode the information for the actual production of the proteins. But we've discovered that just because you have the genes, everybody has the same genes, but just because you have the genes doesn't mean that that gene is going to be expressed or read or produced into a protein. Those are all three the same thing, produced into a protein at the same rate or the same amount. Every single individual is very different in how they express these different proteins. So imagine if you have, let's just take one of the hunger hormones like ghrelin or something along those lines. If you're one of those people that just has really high expression of this ghrelin, then it's entirely possible that you may have completely different behavior. And the only reason why is not because you have more of this gene, but it's because of you have different tags, these different epigenetic tags, which are kind of like the soft programming on top of the gene. If you have certain tags on the very same gene, you can have less expression of a particular protein, a particular hormone, or you can have more expression of a particular protein or hormone. And this changes nonstop throughout the day. You have these tags that get placed and taken off and placed and taken off. It's just, and you have different types of tags, acetylation tags, methylation tags, sumoylation. Like there's all kinds of stuff that people just don't even begin to well, it's it's a vast ocean of information that I think a lot of people don't understand because they're just not in the field. So it's certainly understandable. But the to your overall point, yeah, I think that genetics plays a major factor. For some people, it makes it extremely difficult to overcome. For the vast majority of people, even though we have a lot of differences in the way that the genes are expressed, there is always hope to be able to overcome or change our own epigenetic patterns, because we can do that. We can't necessarily take out the genes and replace it with a new gene, but we can change the epigenetic patterns. So our behavior and our thought processes and the way that we go about our lives definitely makes, in our environment, makes a big difference on which genes are expressed and how we go about our day and how we feel and things of that nature. But no doubt genes as a whole make a big difference.
Yeah, to your first point about them, you thinking that there may be genetics plays maybe the biggest role in terms of health outcomes. The line that came to mind for me was one from Peter Attia, where he says, I think in some interviews people will ask him like, okay, so how do I live longer? And one of the first, or maybe the first thing he'll say is pick the right parents first, just to get the right genetic influence there. But